Eve, are you ready?
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at the most blatant copycats and knockoffs in video game history.
What? Most people never get what they want. Set your expectations low.
Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. The Legend of Neverland, based on Genshin Impact.
The world of morning dew is flowers. Chirping insects sit on branches. This place is carried by the tree of life.
If you're not a seasoned Genshin player, then at first glance you may not even be able to tell that this is a completely different game. Well, admittedly it's not that different, hence why it's going on this list. This is really The Legend of Neverland, a 2022 Genshin clone that copies everything from the font, the UI design, to core premise and gameplay loop of collecting more and more waifus for your roster. Opening with a similarly convoluted anime premise, Neverland also drops you into a grassy green world with a spirit guide after the prologue. It's not available on consoles though, just mobile platforms and PC and Mac via emulators. Atomfall, based on the Fallout series.
Fight for your life!
Have you ever wished that Fallout was more British? Well, if you have, and you don't have a way to play the enormous Fallout London mod, Atomfall is the game for you. Set in an alternate timeline where the real-life wind-scale nuclear disaster in the UK was far worse, you awaken in an underground bunker with no memory of who you are or why you're here. It's also ruthlessly difficult, much more akin to the classic PC Fallout games than the new ones under Bethesda, with some Metro-like immersive sim elements. But this is one game where the comparisons are a compliment, since it's a genuine love letter to everybody's favorite post-nuclear RPG. The Kalisto Protocol, based on the Dead Space series.
Attention! All security personnel, report to the main cell block. This is not a drill.
We all remember how Dead Space was ruthlessly killed by EA, only to be revived for an outstanding remake, just to get killed again though. But spiritual successor The Kalisto Protocol didn't fare much better. Led by one of the original co-creators of Dead Space, Glenn Schofield, it promised to revive Dead Space in spirit, only for EA to release its remake at about the same time. Even without that competition though, it likely wouldn't have done well. Maybe it would have sold better, but it wouldn't have fixed the performance issues. By 2025, Striking Distance Studios had laid off nearly all of its developers because of the game's failure.
Continuing search.
Black Iron Security! You the pilot?
Yeah,
And him?
he's gone.
Concord, based on Overwatch.
Oh, come on. We crushed that last job. Were they even watching? Oh, that's gotta be.
We have come to once again inquire about our free gunner status.
How do you solve a problem like Concord? By shutting it down, refunding everybody, and firing all of the developers just 2 weeks after launch, according to Sony. Everybody knew that Concord was going to fail, since it was put into development to compete with hero shooters that were more popular years ago, such as Apex Legends, and of course Overwatch, which was the biggest game in the world for a while. Overwatch has only gotten less popular over the years though, with Overwatch 2 being a disaster thanks to its erasure of the original game. But even if Sony hadn't killed it, Concord would have died on its own when, just a few months later, Marvel Rivals dropped. This copycat was doomed from the start.
Today, we join your ranks. One more ship blasting through the star fields faster than light. One more voice defying the guild, telling them they don't control us.
Atomic Heart, based on the BioShock series.
Would you care for some more soda, comrade?
BioShock likes are slowly but surely becoming their own genre, which is hardly surprising considering the original is one of the greatest and most influential video games in history, but we haven't really had a BioShock clone that's reached the lofty heights of its progenitor. And 2023's Atomic Heart is no exception. Set in an alternate and advanced Soviet Union, whose technology is based on a unique polymer substance, much like how Rapture runs on Adam and Eve, Atomic Heart certainly could have been good. It had interesting enemy designs and an exciting premise after all, but it could never decide if it wanted to be an action shooter or a survival horror, and had one more glaring problem: the protagonist just wouldn't shut up. Stellar Blade, based on Nier Automata.
Are you alright, Neve?
My body frame.
Take this. It's first aid.
Thank you.
It was a miracle that 2010's Nier got a sequel greenlit, but thank God it did, because that sequel was Nier Automata, one of the best action games ever made. In 2024, South Korean studio Shift Up decided to make its own action game, heavily inspired by Nier Automata, with similar combat and a very similar post-apocalyptic premise. It did well enough and was popular with critics, with a healthy 81 on Metacritic, but it still feels like a shadow of Nier Automata. That's not to say it's not fun, and if you're one of the people who's seen all 26 endings and want something else to play that scratches the same itch, you can't go too far wrong with Stellar Blade.
Here, friend. It's me you want.
Dr. Mario, based on the Tetris series. Tetris remains one of the best puzzlers ever made, so addictive that it gave its name to the Tetris effect, where people imagine the Tetraminos when they close their eyes. So, of course, Nintendo wanted to get in on Tetris' success in a way other than publishing ports. So, in 1990, we got the first Dr. Mario game. It's not identical to Tetris, but it's clearly Nintendo's attempt to rival one of the GOATs. Dr. Mario is, however, a great game in its own right, building on the blocks, pun intended, that Tetris laid out 5 years earlier, and you can never really have too much Tetris. It's addictive for a reason. Code Vein, based on Bloodborne. There are so many Souls-likes that it's difficult to say which one is ripping off of Dark Souls the most, but we think the most similar games are Code Vein and Bloodborne. In fairness, Code Vein is also made by Bandai Namco, but it's still plagued with a lack of originality. It also didn't have the thing that makes a Souls game, the creativity of Hidetaka Miyazaki. It's more futuristic, but most of the game still revolves around collecting and using blood as a resource, just like Bloodborne. The gameplay is just nowhere near as fun or satisfying though, and neither are the enemy designs, which is probably why it hasn't had the same staying power as much better Bloodborne clones, such as Lies of P.
Oh, I'm Mia Karnstein, and I'm good in a fight if you guys ever need the help.
Yeah, you sure did a number on Yakumo.
Fortnite, based on PUBG Battlegrounds. Epic Games has never been shy about the fact it got its idea for a Battle Royale game from PUBG, which launched 6 months before Fortnite's Battle Royale mode. Neither of them is an original idea inspired by a Japanese movie, but Fortnite's mode is a clone that all but killed PUBG. Now, PUBG certainly isn't dead, and people may still prefer it because of its more realistic visuals as opposed to Fortnite's aggressively cartoonish art direction, but the two games are deeply similar. PUBG actually filed a lawsuit against Epic Games in Korea, alleging copyright infringement, but dropped it. Initially, Fortnite's building mechanic set it apart, but then it added a mode with no building at all, making the games near identical, to put it gently. Palworld, based on the Pokemon franchise. What if Pokemon had guns? What if it let you eat and enslave your cute companions too? That was the question Pocket Pair boldly tried to answer with Palworld, which became outrageously popular when it launched in early access in 2024. However, Nintendo is nothing if not litigious, so it was only a matter of time before they filed a lawsuit, which they did in September of 2024, accusing Pocket Pair of patent infringement. Worse, Nintendo claimed patent infringement based on patents that it only filed after Palworld's release, though only one of the patents was actually approved. Only time will tell whether Nintendo succeeds in destroying Palworld, which remains a far better game than what they've put out in recent years. Speaking from experience. Nova, based on the Halo series. As the first fairly good ripoff on our list, Nova is a first-person shooter developed and published by Gameloft. Although, had we not revealed the title, one could think this was a new Halo game for phones and PSP, and you wouldn't be the first to do so. Those who reviewed Nova often compared the title to Microsoft's first-person shooter, noting similar designs in UI, characters, and environments. Still, the game provided an engaging single-player campaign and a surprisingly functional multiplayer mode, so FPS fans might want to give the recent remaster a shot. Garfield Go, AR Treasure Hunt, based on Pokemon Go. Since the 2016 debut of Niantic's Pokemon Go, several other companies have tried to replicate its success, like Ghostbusters World and Jurassic World Alive. Then we have Garfield Go, AR Treasure Hunt, a game that's about as monotone as the orange cat's voice and makes whacking spiders seem miles more fun. Flick lasagna into Garfield's bowl to get him to help you in finding lost treasures and complete scavenger hunts. Besides the minigames that are on the same level of stupid as Odie, there's nothing about Garfield Go that makes itself memorable. It's such a blatant, uncreative cash grab that we'd rather relive those Monday feelings 10 times over. Rock Band series, based on the Guitar Hero series. Well, this is a weird situation. In its first few years, Guitar Hero ruled the gaming industry with its revolutionary take on the music genre, that is, until developer Harmonix departed from the franchise after Guitar Hero Encore rocked the 80s in July 2007. Merely 4 months later, Harmonix launched their own series that replicated Guitar Hero's formula. Rock Band followed the same mechanics of pressing colored buttons in time with the song, but it was a bigger pain in the ass to deal with. Seriously, what kind of a game makes you buy 4 peripherals? 4? While Rock Band saw its own success, the franchise would suffer the same fate as Guitar Hero, collapsing from manufacturing and licensing costs. Farmville, based on Farmtown. Remember all of those Zynga games that flooded Facebook at the turn of the decade? Well, not all of them were entirely original. Take Farmville, for example, a farming simulator that saw millions of monthly users spamming each other with invites to help grow crops and feed animals. However, there was another game that was doing this months before Farmville debuted. This is Farmtown, which started out as a small game before it gained traction on Facebook. Zynga took note of this and managed to steal the spotlight and the aesthetic from Farmtown in late 2009. Farmtown still saw a few 100,000 monthly users, but it never reached the same level of success as Farmville. Fighter's History series, based on the Street Fighter series. A sincere form of flattery or a shameless copycat. Judging from the quality, we'd say Fighter's History falls under the latter. Data East, whom we'll see more of later on this list, developed this 2D fighter, but seemingly forgot about what makes Street Fighter so incredible, particularly Street Fighter 2. It's fast, it's tight, and it shows some personality with its colorful characters and environments. Fighter's History does anything but that, opting for a slower experience and trying to implement character weak points. Capcom noticed the similarities between the games and attempted to sue Data East, but lost the case on account of a scenes on fair. At least the judge acknowledged Data East's possible intentions to copy Street Fighter. Disney Infinity, based on the Skylanders series.
What was that? It felt like something crashed in the city.
When Skylanders launched in 2011, the idea exploded and formed a new facet of the gaming market, Toys to Life. One of the first companies to try and capitalize on this was the Walt Disney Company with Disney Infinity, a sandbox game where players could control their favorite Disney characters to create their own levels or play various campaigns. A good take on the Toys to Life genre, but it felt too much like a cash-in on Skylander's success. Do you have any idea how much money you'd have to spend on blind packs just to get a specific vehicle or tool you wanted? Too much money. Speaking from personal experience, I dumped hundreds into Disney Infinity.
Nice shot! Captain!
Unearthed, Trail of Ibn Battuta, based on the Uncharted series. Ask yourself this: what is it about Uncharted that makes the series so great? Would you say it's the beautiful music and the captivating environments? How about the compelling writing and acting performances? Whichever feature you choose was not accomplished at all in Unearthed, Trail of Ibn Battuta. As one would expect from a game starring a rejected Nathan Drake design, Unearthed spectacularly failed to replicate anything Uncharted was memorable for. The controls were frustrating, the mechanics were broken, and the story came off like terrible fanfiction. And yet, developer Semaphore had found enough reason to begin developing a sequel as of February 2018. Well, here we are, in the year of our Lord and Savior 2025, still no sequel. Wonder what happened.
That was close. I had a feeling I had been watched.
Sonic Shuffle, based on the Mario Party series. Let's be honest, Sonic has been copying Nintendo's Plumber since his debut in 1991. Remember, Sonic was conceived after co-creator Yuji Naka tried to finish the first level of Super Mario Bros. As fast as possible. So again, who's the copycat? While the Blue Blur has had some original games, the most overt ripoff in the series was Sonic Shuffle. Ripping pages from Mario Party, players can move Sonic and friends around a board to collect rings, play minigames, and even take part in boss battles. Sounds exciting, if only the game didn't have the personality of Sonic 06. Minigames are oversimplistic, level designs are dull, and the card system just overcomplicates movement. Man, talk about a buzzkill. Infinite Crisis, based on League of Legends and Dota 2.
Ally defeated.
The early 2010s saw a rise in MOBA games, specifically League of Legends and Dota 2. In the same way we saw the Toys to Life market, MOBAs suddenly exploded, and everybody wanted a slice of the pie, including Warner Bros. Games. With developer Turbine, now WB Games Boston, the two launched Infinite Crisis, a MOBA starring the greatest superheroes and villains from DC Comics. While the concept seemed like a surefire success, it looked too similar to LoL and Dota 2. There just wasn't anything to make itself stand out. Even the roster had nothing against League's dozens of characters, and so the MOBA shut down in August 2015, merely 5 months after launch.
Justice!
Take that!
Delta is under attack.
Konami Crazy Racers, based on the Mario Kart series. We had quite a handful of kart racers to choose from, but Konami Crazy Racers really stuck out to us. Credit where credit is due, Konami Crazy Racers is not a terrible game. With colorful visuals, exceptional sound design, and a colorful cast of racers hailing from Konami's greatest franchises, there's enough to give Konami Crazy Racers a chance. However, the similarities between this and Mario Kart are way too glaring, so much so that even critics were pointing out the obvious replication. The game may be a solid kart racer, but it doesn't bring anything new to the genre, which may be enough to stifle one's enjoyment with it. Castle Miner series, based on Minecraft. Most Minecraft ripoffs fail to see what makes the game so special. So long as you're dropping the player in the middle of nowhere, give them a pickaxe, and drop a bunch of random enemies in the world, you're gold, right? This is exactly what the Castle Miner series did 4 months before Minecraft 1.0 officially launched. Regardless of the bland gameplay and unimaginative environment, Castle Miner became one of the most successful Xbox Live indie games, selling over 1 million copies 10 months after launch. The series would later spawn 2 sequels, Castle Miner Z, which copied several survival games, and Castle Miner Warfare, which tried copying Call of Duty. Tattoo Assassins, based on the Mortal Kombat series.
Hana win.
When you're developing with the sole purpose of competing with a mega popular game like Mortal Kombat, maybe you're in this business for the wrong reasons. This was evident with Data East's Tattoo Assassins, a 2D fighter that utilized digitized actors and claimed to have more than 2,000 fatalities. Sounds like a Mortal Kombat killer, right? I mean, you can kill your opponent by turning them into a clown, or a pig, or a knight, or a lady in a dress. Okay, these are just frickin' lame. Thankfully, the game didn't make it past a few prototypes. Had it seen an official launch, the game would have most likely died because, you know, Killer Instinct and Primal Rage were already giving Mortal Kombat a run for its bloody money. The Great Gianna Sisters, based on Super Mario Bros. Even today, there are countless games trying to trick people into thinking they're playing a Mario game, or at least something just like it. One of the first games to do this was The Great Gianna Sisters, released just 4 years after Super Mario Bros. Stormed the market. While it did bolster a few power-ups that functioned differently from the Fire Flower, some of the levels and enemies made the game look more like a knockoff than it probably is. The two looked so similar that Nintendo actually pressured retailers into not selling the game. Allegedly. Oceanhorn: Monsters of the Uncharted Seas, based on the Legend of Zelda series. Oceanhorn isn't a terrible game, not by any stretch of the imagination. It provides a solid action adventure for mobile platforms that only takes roughly a week to finish, although we can't blame you if the game feels just a little off. The art style, the world, and the gameplay itself hit a little too close to home. Our hero uses bombs, archery, and even spin attacks with his sword. There are even moments in the game where you have to sail to various islands. With all of these combined, it makes it very hard to withhold saying, this is just like Wind Waker.
Deserts of Pirta, mysterious guildfolks drop, beaches of Southwind Isle.
Saints Row and Saints Row 2, based on the Grand Theft Auto series. Today, we know Saints Row as a quirky sandbox adventure with the weirdest guns and superpowers. Seriously, where else can you play as a toilet and assault random people on the streets? However, it did originate as a franchise that was supposed to compete with Grand Theft Auto, a feat that no one would ever dare to accomplish today. The first 2 Saints Row games attempted to capture the same vibe as Rockstar's blockbuster series. It had the same urban atmosphere, the same open-world gameplay, but it's clear the two evolved into their own respective identities as the years passed, like 2 childhood friends. Except in 2022, one of those childhood friends would end up just totally screwing up in the worst way possible. Dantes Inferno, based on the God of War series.
Another wasted soul.
Dantes Inferno had a lot going for itself with its art design, levels, and creative environments. So how does it come off as a God of War ripoff? Well, as far as the game is concerned, it mixes up hack and slash gameplay with QuickTime events just like Sony's Ghost of Sparta. This led to critics constantly drawing comparisons between the two, often citing God of War as the better option and deeming Dantes Inferno as an unoriginal clone. What made its public image even worse was the fact that Dantes Inferno launched an entire month before God of War 3. So, can you really blame the reviewers? It also didn't help that the protagonist shares his name with another icon of the hack and slash genre. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, based on the Super Smash Bros. Series. There are a ton of Smash Bros. Clones out there, but there's a few reasons why PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale made this list. While the game tried doing its own thing in making super moves the only way to score points, PlayStation All-Stars didn't do much else with the fighting crossover formula. It was basically a slower and less energetic Smash Bros. For PS3. To make matters worse, Sony used Nintendo's flagship fighter as a YouTube tag for one of PlayStation All-Stars trailers. This shady marketing tactic made headlines, and it disappointed both PlayStation and Nintendo fans, to put it gently. Game's still fun though.
Sleep tight! Just how great my powers are! Let's try this again!
The Simpsons Road Rage, based on Crazy Taxi.
Didn't think we were gonna make it, did you?
Thanks for the lift, dude!
Just like Crazy Taxi, The Simpsons Road Rage tasked players with speeding through Springfield and bringing passengers to various locations. Outside of characters and locations, Road Rage was almost an exact copy of Sega's hit driving game. So much so that Sega filed a lawsuit against developer Radical Entertainment and publisher Electronic Arts. The case was quickly settled before it went to court. But this wouldn't be the last franchise for The Simpsons to copy. Even after this debacle, The Simpsons Skateboarding and The Simpsons Hit and Run would copy Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Grand Theft Auto respectively.
Nice 50-50 grind.
Whoa!
Candy Crush, based on the Bejeweled series. Shariki may have originated Match 3 puzzle games, but Bejeweled was the franchise to popularize it. Before their big break with Plants vs. Zombies, PopCap Games created this dazzling and relaxing puzzle series that would fall from grace in the early 2010s. Following the microtransaction-heavy Bejeweled Blitz, King would launch their own Match 3 puzzler in 2012. Candy Crush was no different than Bejeweled, tasking players to match 3 pieces of candy and match more to create candy with special effects. The game was, and still is, aggressive with its microtransactions, but it was successful enough to overthrow Bejeweled as the top Match 3 game.
Sweet.
Infestation Survivor Stories, based on DayZ. This indeed was the biggest ripoff in gaming history. As if riding the coattails of DayZ wasn't enough, Infestation Survivor Stories, aka The War Z, misled customers by advertising features that weren't in the game at all. They didn't even mention their shady monetization scheme, demanding players pay a premium currency if they didn't want to wait 4 hours to respawn. In other words, the game managed to copy everything about DayZ except honesty, and it would be removed from Steam 2 days after launch, only to return in February 2013. And yet, it still managed to sell just under 3 million copies before servers shut down in 2016. RIP in peace. Did you play any of these ripoffs for yourself? Let us know down in the comments below if you prefer the ripoffs to the originals in any of these cases, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe to MojoPlays for more great videos every day.